Greetings, ladies and gentlemen of the internet. This is the Rock and Roll Spot coming at you with the third installment of the weekly TV roundup for the 2014 TV season. Starting off things with the third episode of Gotham. The episode begins with the Penguin returning to Gotham, even though he had been told by Gordon not to do so. The episode then moves on to a crooked financier being kidnapped by the Balloon Man by a man referred to as the Balloon Man in an interesting manner, but the financier is handcuffed to a weather balloon. In fact, most people, most of the police, including Bullock, really don't see a problem with this because it's a guy that swindled a bunch of people out of their money. So, maybe, yeah, if the Blue Man were to walk into the station, Bullock would arrest him. Otherwise, who cares? Of course, Gordon gets to see even more of the dark side of the GCPD, various other members. Also, Selena and Gordon talk about the Wayne murders, which leads Gordon to the sewers to confirm her story, which he confirms it all right with the wallet that she stole in the beginning of the first episode. Montoya and Allen visit Fish Mooney concerning the Penguin's disappearance, and Fish sends them after Gordon and Falcone. Montoya also goes to visit Barbara, Gordon's fiancée, to basically to tell her that Gordon killed Penguin on the orders of Carmine Falcone, and that she should really, press him about that. But Barbara refuses to believe her, and the episode continues. We also learn a little bit more about both Barbara's past, Barbara and Montoya's shared past. While in Gotham looking for whatever, really, Penguin is found by one of Fish's men. Of course, Penguin feigns knowledge of who Oswald Cobblepot is, and then eventually, though, it has to, in order to get away from the henchman, kill him. There's a brief moment with Alfred and Bruce fencing with canes, which leads to the discovery that Bruce has been reading over the case file on his parents' murder, which Alfred does not approve of, and asks him if he's a detective. And, well, of course, we all know Bruce's future, but Montoya and Allen talk to Gordon about Penguin's disappearance, flat out accusing him of killing Penguin on the orders of Falcone. Gordon maintains that he didn't kill Penguin, which, in all honesty, is true. Bullock, of course, tries to keep Gordon from talking about certain things. Well, of course, that doesn't exactly work, but, Penguin begins setting himself up in Gotham, including getting a job at an Italian restaurant, partially because he killed one of the dishwashers for his shoes. Eventually, this leads Penguin to meeting Salvatore Maroni, an opposing crime boss of Carmine Falcone. Maroni and Penguin have themselves a chat, which basically shows Maroni that Penguin is somebody who can be trusted. But we'll see where that leads. The Balloon Man takes out a crooked detective that was featured earlier in the episode, talking with Gordon. And when this leads, of course, to Bullock and Gordon searching for the Balloon Man a bit harder and manage to identify where the weather balloons came from, as well as a potential suspect. They get the suspect, and he informs them that he stole the weather balloons, but he did not use them. He sold them to somebody. Never saw the man's face or anything. Um, but he also tells Gordon and Bullock what happens when the balloons get high enough. The helium expands while the balloon itself turns brittle and therefore pops, and the body falls. So the body of the detective ends up falling from the sky, and while going over the body and or the contents of his pockets and whatnot, Gordon's able to figure out that the balloon man is actually Selena's caseworker from Child Services. They track him down to the old to the abandoned Child Services Center, and the Blue Man tries to kill or intends to kill Bullock. Bullock manages to get a drop on Balloon Man and handcuffs Balloon Man to his own balloon. But rather than let that go, Gordon helps to weigh him down, and then Bullock shoots the balloon out, and Balloon Man gets arrested. While watching the news about the Balloon Man's arrest, Alfred and Bruce have a brief discussion about the whole thing, and basically, the best way to describe it would be that Bruce begins to develop his code against killing. And at the end of the episode, while Gordon is at home with Barbara, there's a knock at the door. When the door opens, it's Penguin. All in all, good episode, and nothing that pops out in this one, but still, like I said, well done. Definitely should be interested to see where next week's episode goes, especially with that ending with Penguin just showing up at Jim's doorstep. Anywho, moving on to The Flash, which is quite possibly one of the shows I've been most looking forward to the premiere of once I heard it was definitively going to happen. Alright, so The Flash begins with a flashback to 14 years ago when Barry's mother is murdered by a yellow ball of lightning which seems to have a man inside of it. Cut back to the present, a bank robbery just occurred, committed by the Martin brothers. Barry, running late as usual, manages to find some manure in a tire tread mark, and has it analyzed and manages to narrow down the search field to 4 farms, since they already know the kind of car they're looking for, Detective Joe West goes to investigate with his partner, and this happens on the same night as the particle accelerator. At the big gala for the turning on of the particle accelerator, Barry, sort of in a very awkward and roundabout manner that Iris doesn't catch, admits his feelings for Iris West before the particle accelerator is turned on. A mugger, however, steals Iris's laptop, and Detective Eddie Thawne managed to catch said mugger before the accident, during the particle accelerator accident, which of course, sends the lightning bolt that hits Barry. It also seems to destroy the plane, which had the Martin brothers in it. Now, 9 months later, we find out that Barry wakes up from his coma. Dr. Wells, who runs Star Labs, somewhat catches him up on those past 9 months. Then Clyde Martin robs a bank using fog and whatnot to obscure cameras and everything. Fog and lightning to obscure cameras. Barry briefly discovers his speed powers as well as a hint of his vibrational abilities. which he then tells Dr. Wells and the Star Labs crew about. And they check out just how fast he can go, and they don't have him go too. They don't have him push himself too hard, but however, while doing this at a Ferris airstrip, Barry remembers the death of his mother and loses control briefly and slams into the water barrels at the end of the airfield. After another robbery, Barry attempts to stop Martin's getaway, but fails due to Martin's weather powers. He informs Detective West, who doesn't believe him that it's Martin, and they argue for a bit, saying it can't be Martin because Martin's dead. Barry's father, played by John Wesley Shipp, who played Barry Allen in the 1991 Flash series, killed his mother, so on and so forth. In a flashback, we see Barry's dad arrested for the murder, while while trying to figure out what to do. Barry runs to Starling City and asks Ollie, Green Arrow, for advice, and ends up getting the inspiration for a name. Joe West and Eddie Thawne go after Martin, and Barry manages to save the day when Martin summons a tornado, which Barry basically outruns. Afterwards, Joe West sees Barry with the cowl off of his makeshift costume, and basically it tells Barry straight up, "I believe you. Okay, I believe you now. If you can do this, if you can just do what you just did, then why can't what happened to your mom actually happen?" Barry goes to talk to his dad in Iron Heights. Then Cisco of the Star Labs crew puts a lightning bolt on the chest of Barry's makeshift costume. Then Dr. Wells, who since the accident has been shown in a wheelchair, is revealed capable of walking, as well as in possession of a copy of the Central City Citizen, the newspaper of Central City, from 2024. The headline claiming that the Flash has vanished during a crisis. Also mentioned on the front page of this is that the skies have turned red. First off, I'm going to address that last bit right there. This is quite possibly a reference to one of the biggest DC stories ever, Crisis on Infinite Earths, which actually saw Barry Allen sacrifice himself to save the universe, to save everything. He ran himself to death. During the crisis, the skies on Earth went red. It's a common thing during crisis events in DC. Other things, having Martin in as a weather manipulating criminal points towards the use of the rogues, which they're the best part of the Flash, really. While Dr. Wells is telling Barry what has transpired over the last 9 months, there's a destroyed cage scene for Star Labs with a sign hanging off it saying Grodd, implying that perhaps Gorilla Grodd's going to be in town as well, which that will be very interesting to see how they pull that one off. Gorilla Grodd being a hyper-intelligent ape from Gorilla City in the comics. How they're going to do it in in the show is anyone's guess. There's a crack made by Thawne at one point about a mugger being faster than a speeding bullet. And once again, it was really cool seeing John Wesley's ship in the series and the fact he can have a regular role. All in all, solid beginning. Again, looking forward to the next episode. So, anyways, moving on to episode 3 of the first season of Scorpion. The team trains with the Marine squad with disastrous results. Everybody basically, and the director of Homeland Security relieves the team of duties until further notice. So Paige is then tasked with helping them get over or get past the downsides of or where they screwed up during their training mission or their training job. Explosion of a building downtown has Gallo called in. The team shows up because apparently the bomb has affected wireless internet access in the Southwest. Their involvement is allowed very briefly. However, they get involved anyway, and the team goes after the bomber, who ends up getting hit by a bus. Yeah, a bus. The team looks over some evidence from the bomber's apartment, and then more bombs go off. The reason discovered for the bombings is a computer file implicating a high-ranking government covert operative in illegal spying on the president, amongst others. A crooked, said high-ranking official tries to steal the info, and somebody put Gallo whoops his ass with an assist from Sylvester. The info was lost, but as Sylvester had read it over Walter's shoulder, he managed to memorize it, and so Sylvester's testimony will then be sworn into record as evidence against the official. Honestly, this was to me a better episode than the last two. It did not have that disaster of the week vibe, and maybe this show might pull through, but we'll see. That's really all I can say on this one. We will see. Moving on to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Mr. Whitehall, whom the Hydra operative we met at the very beginning of the season, is attempting to brainwash Agent 33 of S.H.I.E.L.D. It's taking a while. Moving on, we catch up with Simmons. Actual Simmons, not hallucination Simmons. And it turns out she's working in a lab for Hydra. May and Sky do some training on the base's firing range, and Sky has asked she's ever had to take someone out, and she says that, as far as she knows, she hasn't. May informs her later that it never gets easy to do so. Simmons discovers that Hydra is looking into going after Donnie Gill, or has acquired Donnie Gill, who we find out is in Marrakesh. Simmons turns out is actually undercover and debriefs Coulson on the situation. She ends up going to talk to her higher ups about Donnie Gill, and is then recruited to go on a mission to get him back into custody. Fitz meets with Ward while the rest of the team goes to try and beat Hydra to Donnie. Whitehall's right-hand man re-triggers Donnie's brainwashing, and Sky ends up taking out Donnie. At least as far as we know, but no body is ever found, so he could still be alive somehow. Then Coulson informs Fitz about what it is Simmons is doing, why she left. A good episode. It was nice seeing Simmons back. Also, point of interest is that yes, eventually Agent 33's brainwashing does work. I was hoping to see more of Kyle MacLachlan and Raina, but maybe next week. All right, moving on to Sleepy Hollow. The episode begins with Abby and Ichabod being turned away from visiting Captain Irving by order of his lawyer, Henry. After Henry leaves the Sleepy Hollow savings alone, one of the employees holds up the bank but ends up getting killed by Sheriff Reyes. It turns out that an enchanted coin is the catalyst for these betrayals. And in fact, it turns out that the same enchanted coins are also responsible for the betrayal of Benedict Arnold, turning traitor back to the Revolutionary War. Abby and Ichabod go to track down and hopefully speak with the contact of Jenny's, who knows a bit about certain artifacts. And while talking with him, first off, he refers to the coin as a shekel, and Ichabod realizes just what the coin represents. It's one of the 30 pieces of silver that Judas received from King Herod. The coin ends up briefly in evidence after bombing at a flower shop, but is picked up by Henry, who ends up managing to get it to Jenny. Abby and Ichabod meet with Jenny's contact, who has recently had a gun stolen by Jenny. He and Ichabod then get a means of protecting themselves from the coin, some stained glass, while Jenny is going after Sheriff Reyes under the coin's influence. Abby tries to talk her down, and the coin is eventually neutralized. Afterwards, Reyes gives Abby the file on her mother, and as it turns out that Reyes was the one who had Abby and Jenny's mother committed to the same sanitarium that Jenny was in for most of the first season. Then Jenny's contact, or also Ichabod finds a loophole about visiting Sheriff or Captain Irving by informing he's not there to visit Sheriff or Captain Irving. He's there to visit another patient entirely. But Irving discovers him there, and so the two of them talk, and Ichabod tells Irving the truth about his quote-unquote lawyer, Henry, and why maybe if Henry's trying to get him out, maybe the best place for him is inside. Jenny's contact ends up leaving to track down the remaining 29 coins and gives Ichabod something he has been needing throughout the episode: a falsified form of identification, something of a parting gift. Again, also off to a good solid start. There was some bits with Katrina and the Horsemen, but nothing really earth-shattering. So, hence the fact they weren't really mentioned. Anyway, that is it for this week's Weekly TV Roundup. I'll be back Saturday with a video, and the Weekly TV Roundup will be back next Wednesday, where we'll be adding Arrow to the list as well, as the season premieres tonight. And yeah, I'm not gonna be able to. I just wouldn't be able to work the video in tomorrow. So, anywho, that being said, feel free to like, share, subscribe. Follow me on Facebook and Twitter. Links to both are down below. And as always, live long, rock hard.